All right, now I understand that there's two meeting invites. Will both lead us to this meeting?
No, one pulls you back to the meeting on June 17th.
Oh, how was that?
It was a great meeting.
Yes. Just
Very
case
informative.
just in case you missed anything.
And over.
And it's over. All right, well, if we've got a quorum, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Kelly,
Here?
Bishop, Brancatelli,
Yep.
Cleveland,
Here.
Conwell, Griffin, Hairston,
Here.
Johnson, Foster Jones,
Here.
Joe Jones, Casey, McCormick,
Present.
Mooney, Kalinsik, Santana, Glide,
Present.
Zone.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Let me begin with the formalities. This committee of the whole is being held during the COVID-19 emergency declaration in accordance with Ohio's open meetings law as amended by Sub-House Bill 197. This meeting is held using the Zoom platform, is being live streamed on YouTube and Cleveland's Channel 20. In accordance with Ohio open meeting regulation as amended by Sub-House Bill 197, notice of this committee was publicly posted. This morning's committee of the whole, we have a relatively light agenda compared to our previous two committees of the whole. I anticipate that we will be concluded in enough time to let the staff do what they need to do so that we can start the council meeting by 11. For those directors and those administration that are planning, I intend to go in this order. I'm going to begin with the capital projects piece that is under suspension. And then I'm going to go to public works, community relations, human resources, and then the Cleveland City Council pieces. We'll conclude with those. So with that, I will begin with ordinance number 538, 2020. Councilmembers Johnson, Casey, Cleveland, and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the appropriate director to enter into more requirements or standard contracts for the immediate purchase of labor, equipment, and materials for the various items needed to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 to city employees and members of the public, including but not limited to barriers and dividers and other similar items necessary hardware, signage and flyers, touchless operators, appurtenances and device, hand sanitizer dispensers, temperature sensor devices, HVAC air filters and disinfectant equipment, portable disinfectant equipment, furniture, and other items deemed necessary by the Director of Finance for the various departments, offices, and branches of the city. This is all intended for a reopening of City Hall and our public buildings. Is Director Sprons or Chief Brown on for this piece? Is anybody on for this piece? Okay, this is kind of important stuff. We will set aside ordinance number 583, 2020. Moving to Public Works. Ordinance number 374, 2020 as amended. Councilmembers McCormick, Johnson, Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Works to employ one or more professional consultants to provide services necessary to manage the West Side Market parking lot for a period not to exceed 3 years. And there is an amendment I would like to make sure. The amendment is pretty benign. In section 2 at the end, insert RQS 7008 RLA 2020-34. So I'm sure you all know what that means. So with that, I see Assistant Director Kim Johnson is with us. Are you here to speak on 374-2020 as amended?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Council President and other members of Council. The Department of Public Works is seeking authorization to employ a professional parking company to manage and operate the West Side Market parking lot for a period of 3 years. The professional parking company will employ staff and manage all day-to-day operations of the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week parking lot. The estimated cost to manage this lot is about $400,000. And we're seeking authorization from this body.
Okay, the $400,000 will be for the consultants. And who currently is the vendor, who manages it currently?
The $400,000 is for the management company to pay for their management expense and operating expenses. Currently, ABM Parking Services is our management company.
Okay, so this will be rebid to get an ABM or somebody like them to manage the parking lot.
Yes, that's correct.
Great. Okay, Councilman Ken Johnson, do you have any comments on ordinance 374-2020?
No, the only comment I have, Mr. Chairman, the 3 years is necessary because you'll get a better price.
Okay. Yeah, it's a 3-year period, right? And there are
Right.
options. Okay, thank you. Local council person is Carrie McCormick. Councilman McCormick, do you have comments on 374-2020 as amended?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I just want to note that I appreciate Director Johnson's response when we've had issues at the lot. But I do want to note that, and by the way, she's been very helpful in sorting those issues out. But with that said, with the current vendor, we've had significant problems when machines break down, the timeliness of them fixing them, the restriction of people not being able to get in when the machines are broken down. So my question through the chair, or through the chair, president, to the director is what are we putting in place moving forward to ensure that those don't happen? And when they do happen, things break, I get that, but that they're taken, they're addressed in a timely manner as to not prevent folks from getting into the market. And one example would be, if the arm is broken, can we, while it's being fixed, leave it up so folks can still come in and park and shop at the market? But with this contract, what are we doing to ensure that whoever the vendor is, that we have the precautions put in place to make sure that doesn't happen? And if it does, it's addressed immediately.
Council President, to the councilman, one of the things that we have done most immediately is we've worked with the parking operator to install an update that just happened last week, which should assist in mitigating a lot of the issues that we have had in the past. We have also worked with this parking operator in terms of trying to make sure that when they're having an issue, that they have a plan already in place that they've advised us about, and how they will manually operate in the event that we have a gate problem or something like that. So they have been putting those procedures and processes in place. We've had a lot fewer issues than we did early on. So some of those mitigating factors have been successful. And we will continue to work with them to make sure that they're being very responsive to the customers that we have at the West Side Market parking lot.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I would just request that if there is a situation where the arm is not working, that we do everything we can just to leave it up, just because, to provide people the opportunity to go in there and park. Obviously, if it's not working and it's down, we're still not collecting revenue. At least this way, folks can access the lot to shop at the market or to do whatever they're doing. So I'm happy to hear, Mr. Chairman, that is being considered and really implemented with this ordinance. And the other thing, Mr. Chairman, that I'll just peg, and this is not on this ordinance, so I'm just going to throw it in the air, but is the conversation around smart parking, Mr. Chair, from a citywide perspective. I'd love to get an update at some point on that.
Thank you. Yeah, Assistant Director, if you could give us an update. We talked about the budget. I haven't heard anything since budget time on that
So,
project.
Council President, to the councilman, in terms of the meter project, we will be meeting next week. We have a meeting set with Chief Brown and Director Cox, myself, and the parking consultant to go through our proposal, our request for proposal, and all the details with regards to it. Councilman McCormick, Director Cox did send you an email informing you that we will, after we've met with Chief Brown, that he will be scheduling a meeting to have a conversation so that we can share all of our information with you.
Thank you. So I should look out for an email in the next week or so.
Yes, you should.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Further questions, comments on 374-2020?
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, I'm looking at the legislation and this is $400,000 a year, each year for 3 years is the estimate? For the chairman?
Director? Council President, to the councilman, if you could repeat your question, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
So that it was stated that the estimate is 400,000. Is that for each year or is that for the period of the 3 years?
That would be estimated for each year.
So in essence, we're approving $1.2 million here. What has been the revenue from that parking garage now? Or the surface lot rather?
I don't have that information in front of me at this time. So we'd have to get that back to you, Councilman.
So the other part of this question is the equipment that's there that Councilman McCormick referenced. Is that our equipment or is that property of the parking lot manager?
Council President, Councilman, that is our equipment. City owns that equipment.
So there's no proprietary, we're not paying licensing fees or anything of that nature. We purchased equipment outright. And so under this contract, is the managers then responsible for maintaining that equipment?
Council President, to the councilman, we have an agreement with the manufacturer of the parking equipment to provide maintenance to the equipment. There's been some training to the parking operator, so there are some basic things that we would require that our parking operator be able to repair, but we do have a maintenance agreement with SCADATA, who is the manufacturer of the equipment.
So that's a separate contract that we're paying for through the chair?
That is a separate contract.
And so if the equipment gets damaged or if the arms are broken, is it the responsibility of the manager or the maintenance contract to make those repairs?
If the equipment, if the gate arm gets broken, then we would request a new gate arm from the parking manufacturing company, and but if it just simply has been popped off, which sometimes is the case, then the parking operator would replace it.
So going back then to the income generated on this, so we don't know if this is revenue generating neutral or whether we're earning income on the parking lot.
We do know that information, Councilman. However, I do not have it in front of me right now. It's something that I'd have to get back to you about.
Okay, and you referenced to the chairman a meeting to talk about the RFP. Does the city council staff, is there a staff person or the council, is Councilman McCormick or someone represented in that RFP meeting?
This is an administrative meeting, Councilman, where we will brief our chief. So once we have done that, then we will come back and have a contact with the councilman.
Okay. Yeah, and I would just go back go ahead.
Just on that point, I don't recommend a member of the legislative body be involved in a meeting that is going to be issuing a contract in any way. I think that we should stay miles away from that. It's good to be informed of the emails and stuff, but we don't want any perception that we have a vendor, a favored vendor or anything. So I just recommend we stay away from those types of being in the meeting itself.
Yeah, my reference on that, Mr. Chairman, was less about the contractor, but more about the what are we searching for? So as Councilman McCormick pointed out, and looking at smart parking or looking at new technologies, going out to bid for the not knowing what the best practices are out there, not who the contractor is, but what are some of the best practices out there.
Yeah, give us as much information, but I'm recommending everybody stay away
Right.
from bidders meetings, RFP meetings, anything of that nature.
No, I just, again, going back to looking at, smart parking and those, we've been talking about that for some time. That just hasn't been implemented yet. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to reiterate, we're paying more than $33,000 a month, according to this piece of legislation, to have somebody manage our parking lot. Is that correct, Director?
Just one moment, Councilman, I'll do the math on that. Well, that is not correct. I will tell you that is not correct because we pay the operating expenses. There's an operational expense to pay the salaries of employees, any maintenance issues, the tickets that are used in the equipment. So that is included with the operating expense. So there's a fee to the management company, but then there are all the operating expenses that take place in order to operate the parking lot.
And then, Mr. President, to the Assistant Director, do you know how much that fee is?
Council President, to the councilman, that is something that we will find out when the proposals come in.
All right, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further questions on ordinance numbers 374, 2020 as amended? No other hands up. Ordinance number 374, 2020 as amended stands approved. Your vote will only count if you are visible on the screen. Some people are on phone only, but just so you know, you won't be counted for this vote. So 374, 2020 stands approved. Thank you, Director. We're going to move to community relations at this point, and we have ordinance number 359, 2020, Councilmember Zoning Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Community Relations to enter into a contract with Cleveland Peacemakers Alliance, Inc. for professional services necessary to develop and implement community-based, court-based, and hospital-based violence intervention and prevention programs and strategies for a period of 1 year, with one option to renew for an additional year, exercisable by the Director of the Community Relations Board. Grady, I believe you're with us. Step right in front of me. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning. Tell us about ordinance number 359.
So, Council President to Council, Cleveland Peacemakers Alliance has been a partner with the City of Cleveland for several years, as you all know, in helping to prevent youth violence. It's a Mayor's comprehensive effort to address the root cause of youth violence and the impact trauma and toxic stress on our youth in our community. Peacemakers Alliance has a unique skill set that allows them to work with these individuals in our community to help alleviate some of the violence in our community and to also connect them with resources that are badly needed in our community with our residents and our youth to help in our city to prevent some of the events of trauma and toxic stress from taking place in our streets. Cleveland Peacemakers Alliance is the only organization that we know that has this particular skill set that really helps us in the community to address these issues. And so we're asking for this $200,000 to be passed so that we can work with Cleveland Peacemakers Alliance, partner with them, I should say, in our community to help us in this effort, Mr. President.
Thank you, Director. And is this, how long have we had this relationship with Peacemakers Alliance?
This effort with Peacemakers Alliance goes well back to, I think, 2007, I believe.
Great. Great, thank you. Yeah, we're obviously, I'm assuming since you're here that we're pleased with this relationship. We want to continue it.
Absolutely, Mr. President. I think every year, Cleveland Peacemakers Alliance has done things to beef up their organization, to be more professional, to work more consistently with the things that we're doing. As you see, they have a hospital piece that they work with. They also now have a court piece that they're working with, all to help our youth and the residents in the city of Cleveland and the Department of Community Relations to do better in addressing some of the trauma and toxic stress that takes place in our city.
Great, thank you. Councilman Zone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, normally this legislation would get routed to the Safety Committee first and then to Finance, but with this pandemic, it just got routed here. I would like, and Mr. Chairman, I have no reservation about this moving out of this committee here, but I would like Director Stevens and the partners in the Peacemaker Alliance to make themselves available for next Wednesday, July 8th at 10 a.m. There will be a safety committee meeting of Cleveland City Council so we can get more granular and discuss the work that the Peacemakers doing right now in this pandemic, and then what you how you see this program developing post-pandemic as well.
President, to the councilman, I think that would be excellent. I don't think there will be a problem in making sure that they're available during that meeting.
Great. So, Mr. Chairman, next to the director, next Wednesday, July 8th, 10 a.m., my staff will follow up with you directly to work out the particulars.
President, to the councilman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. And I should have mentioned this when I read it. This is normally would have been routed to safety, but this is being requested for passage under suspension because of the world that we're living in right now. Councilman Mike Polensek. Unmute, Mike. If you could unmute, Councilman. Hit that little microphone button.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I want to follow up on Councilman Zone's request. And it was apropos that if they could provide to us a breakdown, what they're doing in each of the districts. Because I have very little contact with them in the 5th district. So I'd like to really know what their activities are in the 5th district. So I would hope that you could provide that to us, put that together by next Wednesday. So when they come to the screen, they're going to have all of the information that we would request. And if you could provide that to us in advance, some of the things they're working on or their initiatives broken down by districts would be very helpful. The actual dollar amount associated with this is how much, Mr. Chairman?
Director?
The president to the councilman, 200,000.
Okay. So I would appreciate that information and anything else they can provide to us, because again, in these critical times, I think it's more important than ever before, groups and agencies that we're funding, that we get a good handle on exactly what they're doing out there in the street. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my honorable colleagues.
Thank you, Councilman Polensek. Councilman Joe Jones.
I got it off mute. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I along the same questionings of my former colleague, Mr. Polensek, just wanted to, what'd you say?
I thought you said your former colleague. I say you
I mean, yeah, my colleague, thank you. My distinguished colleague, sorry.
That's more like it.
Yeah. Just wanted to make sure that the director also puts in there as well, what are they doing in our neighborhood in addition to, so you might as well just tell us what's happening citywide. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Councilman. Councilman Charles Slife.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to Director Dumas, I have the mayor's estimate in front of me. Is this $200,000 out of the general fund under contractual services, or is this a non-general fund source? The fund listed in the legislation? Are these
The
general
fund-
fund dollars?
These are general fund dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Anything further on ordinance number 53920? If there's nothing further, ordinance number 53920 will be considered by the full council later this morning. Moving to, thank you, Director Stevenson, appreciate. We're going to move to human resources right now. And the ordinances that we are going to consider are requested for passage under suspension, each of them. So I'm going to begin with ordinance number 53720, an emergency ordinance to amend section 4, excuse me, ordinance 53720, Councilmember Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to amend section 48 of ordinance number 32315 as amended relating to compensation for various classifications. Who's got this one? Director West with us?
Gina Routon is coming on. She's trying to connect to audio.
Okay, we're gonna move to the council pieces now. And we begin with ordinance number 24620. Councilmember Conwell, an emergency ordinance designating Chester Avenue between 105th Street and 107th Street with a secondary and minor designation of Bishop J. Delano Ellis II Way. The councilman has gone through the application process and that council set forth and taken all the necessary steps to have this before us today. Is Councilman Conwell on the line? Is there any objection to 247-2020?
No, I'm here, Council President. Can you hear me?
Yes. Well, we're on a different ordinance right now. We're on ordinance number 24620. Council piece. Is Councilman Conwell with us? Councilman Mike Polenzek.
Mr. Chairman, I wholeheartedly support, and I would only ask respectfully if I could have my name added to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further on ordinance number 246-2020?
Mr. Chair,
Councilman?
in Councilman Conwell's absence, Bishop Ellis is widely known throughout the community, has done some tremendous work all across this city. And it would be an honor for the street to be renamed, secondary street renamed after Bishop Ellis. And so I wholeheartedly support this. And I'm sure on behalf of Councilman Conwell, he would ask that all of our colleagues join in supporting this designation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I don't see the raise hand button, so I just jumped in.
Sure.
I echo what all my colleagues have said. Bishop J. Delano Ellis is a very well-respected person, has done a lot of work, he and his wife, and the Pentecostal ministries in Christ, and he's nationally renowned. He's a person who is well-deserving of this honor. So I'd also like to ask if all my colleagues would join in support of this with Bishop Ellis.
Great. Is there any objection to adding all council members as a sponsor to ordinance number 246-20?
No objection.
Objection. Okay, Madam Clerk. Councilman Joe Jones. Could you please unmute yourself? Councilman Joe.
I'm on mute. Can you hear me okay? No, I echo the same comments my colleagues have echoed. This is a great man, a true man of the living God. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to have my name also listed.
Great. Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, comments, ordinance number 246-2020 stands approved. There's a couple of resolutions that I would like to read as well. These are all requested for passage under suspension. Resolution 525-20, council members Griffin, Zone, Santana, McCormick, an emergency resolution calling for an end to the United States economic, commercial, and financial embargo against Cuba and urging President Trump to renew negotiations with Cuban governments as initiated by the policy of the past administrations and to build an ongoing cooperative relationship with the United States and Cuba. Without objection, council, on resolution 525. Okay. Without objection, we will hear ordinance number 525-20 later this morning. Ordinance number 54820. Councilmember Kelly, an emergency ordinance recognizing June 30th as Congolese Independence Day and welcoming and celebrating with our Congolese residents and community as it continues to grow. That was yesterday. They had a nice celebration. Any objection to Resolution 548, 2020?
Just thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a brief comment. The local Congolese communities has kind of a little headquarters in my ward. I wasn't able to join the walk yesterday. Thank you to the mayor and the administration for getting the Congolese flag flying on over City Hall. And I would ask that if my name could be added as a co-sponsor, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing further, Resolution 54820 will be considered by the full council tonight. Resolution 54720, Councilmember Kelly, an emergency resolution fixing the next date of the regular council meeting, which will be 2 weeks from today, and we'll stay on this schedule. Is there any objection or comments on 54720? Hearing none, Resolution 54720 will be considered by the council tonight. And that is all of the council pieces that we have. I'm going to go back to capital projects and then HR. We have I read this once, so I'll read it again. It's a lot of words, but this is ordinance number 53820. It's what I originally read, and it deals with reopening of Cleveland City Hall and our public buildings. Ordinance number 53820, council members Johnson, Casey, Kelly by Cleveland and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the appropriate director to enter into one or more requirements or standard contracts for the immediate purchase of labor, equipment, and materials for the various items needed to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 to city employees and members of the public, including but not limited to barriers and dividers and other similar items of necessary hardware, signage and flyers, touchless operators of apparatus and other devices, hand sanitizer dispensers, temperature sensor devices, HVAC filters and disinfection equipment, portable disinfecting equipment, furniture, and other items deemed necessary by the Director of Finance for the various departments, offices, and branches of the city. So I see Chief Dumas and Director Sprons is on. Who wants this one?
I'll talk about it, then I'll let Sprons talk about it.
Okay,
I just want council to understand why we're passing kind of so many pieces around the COVID. Different sources of funding sometimes require that we pass different pieces of legislation. This one is going to be, we are guessing, because we don't have an estimate yet, substantial in its expenditure. The original estimate as a beginning is about $2 million, and it'll come from, and that's a real beginning, and it'll come from the COVID funds. This is on the part of MOCAP, which Sprons will discuss, and Chief Brown in doing the reconstituting our buildings in order to meet the standards from the state of Ohio. So the 6 feet distancing, the 10 in a room. In some instances, we're going to have to get rid of the old, heavier, larger furniture and buy modular stuff. We may have to buy plexiglass. We may have to buy different things in order to accommodate these buildings. And this is citywide, not just City Hall. It's all city-owned buildings. And so this piece allows us to support that activity. The source of funding that we're considering at this time is the second stimulus money that we just received, the $31 million that was given to the city directly that we received last week, Monday. Okay, Director Sprons, you can tell the rest.
Yeah, and just to follow up with what Chief Dumas is saying, and as it's described in the ordinance, this will give us authority to procure these items, and make the modifications to the offices to allow us to start to safely reoccupy and reoperationalize the City Hall, not only City Hall, but all buildings. We have about 222 facilities, about 3.3 million square feet of space. So this is a citywide program that we're going to be embarking on, and we have a schedule to get started with it and start to implement this to get the employees back safely. And as Chief mentioned, most of this will be like glass partitions, similar to what you see if you go to a grocery store now, you'll see a partition between the workers or a partition between the customer and the teller or whatever. So there'll be those types of things will be going up throughout the offices all over the city.
Right, and this will include all, in addition to City Hall, all the rec centers, police, fire, all of every city-owned building in the city of Cleveland.
That's correct. Yeah, every facility in the city of Cleveland.
Great, and we're going to use this out of the recently awarded stimulus funds that came through the state, correct? Is that what you
That's
just said?
correct. That's Mr. Chair. That's where we're going to start from, because we have no idea, how expansive and how expensive this may be. And of course, we only got 31 million. I shouldn't say only, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. We got 31 million, and we do have to cover, some of our expenses around PPE and other things so we're starting with that without knowing, but as we'll of course be coming back to council if the cost gets, unmanageable.
Wonderful. All right, thank you. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My point of information to Director Dumas. So the $31 million that we received, that's on top of how much we've received already.
The $31 million is, yes, our latest receipt of grant funds, but the city of Cleveland did not receive any of the stimulus money from the first package. It was given to the county, and there was no direct awards to cities that had 500,000 or less of population. And so that's why they then proposed at the city's behest a second package that was a direct award. So we didn't receive any of the first stimulus package from the county. So we have received, though, Councilman, a couple of other small grants.
Yes.
So, but this is our latest one and our largest one.
Okay. So through the chair, if you could provide to us, all of us, exactly what we received up to date. And then as it pertains to the, I don't know if you want to use the term retrofitting, or will we be given any indication as to, let's say, like the rec centers that are in each of our wards, what will actually be physically taking place there? We're not talking about any reconstruction, are we? Through the chair to Director Dumas or to Mr. Sprance?
I can answer that question, Chief. No, we're not reconstructing. This is mostly just like I mentioned, it'll be, and as the legislation outlines, glass panels, and partitions to keep people away from each other, and signage and hand washing stations, touchless stuff like touchless drinking fountains, touchless, sinks and dispensers and stuff. So it's just those kinds of things, all which is required by the Ohio Department of Health guidelines. So we're following that as our guidelines.
And that's estimated, Mr. Chairman, to Director Sprance, that's estimated to be around $2 million at this time.
That's what Chief Dumas mentioned.
Yes. That's not an estimate, though, Councilman. I don't want you, that's what we're starting with, okay? Because we have no idea, what it's going to cost. If you recall, the county got a $30-some million stimulus amount to do their buildings, and they recently passed something to spend that $30 million. So I have no idea until Director Sprance and his group goes through all of this as to how much expending is going to happen. So I'm starting, I believe, modestly by saying 2 million and see what they come up with as we track it.
Okay. I just want to make sure that the council is kept in the loop as pertains to what you're doing and where you're doing it at, so we can have a better understanding as pertains to how these facilities are being safeguarded and how our citizens and the people who are coming out of these city facilities, how they're being protected. That's all I'm asking for. So on that note, I obviously support this. And again, if we could receive information as it pertains to the grants and monies that we have received to date, what those have been used for. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Director.
Thank you, Councilman Polensek. Councilman Matt Zone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to my colleagues, I just want to acknowledge the work of this council. Several weeks ago, we put in a resolution of support for work that the National League of Cities was doing. the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, asked the National League of Cities to actually conduct a survey of cities. NLC reached out to over 1,100 municipalities that fell, Director Dumas or Chief Dumas is correct, below that threshold of 500,000. And this bill was specifically crafted to send money into those cities that fell below that 500,000 population. So kudos to this council for passing that resolution several weeks ago, and to the work of the National League of Cities. I just want to highlight our participation in this organization, as well as supporting this effort, and have no reservation about supporting this ordinance, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Zone. If there are no further questions, ordinance number 53820 will be considered by the full council later this morning. Thank you. Thank you, Director. Moving to Human Resources. Each of these ordinances will be considered under suspension. Each is requested to be considered under suspension later this morning. Beginning with ordinance number 53720 by Councilmember Kelly, an emergency ordinance to amend section 48 of ordinance number 32315 as amended related to compensation for various classifications.
So you want your video cut off?
Yes.
Victor, can you unmute yourself? Okay.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Director West is not available. So I'm Gina Roughton and I'm in her stance. So the Department of Human Resources is seeking approval for 3 collective bargaining agreements and amending respective sections of the pay band ordinance. The first one is the Ohio Nurses Association, Local 85. They have agreed to pattern wages and healthcare coverage. It's 4 employees in this group, and they are in the health department, and there's 1 at the safety medical unit.
Okay, I think that's ordinance 542. Ordinance 537, it changes the pay band for bricklayers and bricklayer.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I think that's the only change to this to 53720's only changes to those 2 classifications, bricklayer foreman, and I believe that is to bring them into prevailing wage for each classification.
Yes, this is the Cleveland Building Trades.
Yes.
And the only changes that we have for is the bricklayer and the bricklayer foreman. And the effective date for that is 5/1/2020. This is a change from the last.
Great. Questions, comments on 53720? Hearing none, ordinance number 53720 will be considered by the full council this afternoon, later this morning. Next, we have ordinance number 54020, Councilmember Kelly by departmental request, emergency ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 38, and to amend section 20 of ordinance number 32315 passed March 30th, 2015, as amended, relating to compensation for various classifications. Yeah.
Okay, so these are the electrical workers. There are 7 of these employees. They are in DPU and building and housing code enforcement. This union has agreed to the pattern wages and the healthcare coverage, and we are asking for approval.
Great. And this is the 222 pattern,
222 pattern, yes.
that we agreed upon. Questions, comments on ordinance number 54020? Hearing none, ordinance number 54020 will be considered by the full council this morning. Ordinance number 54120, Councilmember Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement with the plumbers inspectors, Local 55, and to amend section 21 of ordinance number 32315 passed March 30th, 2015, as amended, relating to compensation for various classifications.
Thank you. This union is the plumber inspectors. These employees are in building and housing. They have agreed to the pattern wages 2, 2, and 2, and also the healthcare coverage.
Great. So it's 222 effective April 1, 2019.
Yes.
And there's 4 classifications, plumbing inspectors, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yes.
Questions, comments on ordinance 54120? Hearing none, ordinance number 54120 will be considered by the full council this morning. Ordinance number 54220, Councilmember Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement with the Ohio Nurses Association, Local 85, and to amend section 24 of ordinance number 32315 passed March 30th, 2015, as amended, relating to compensation for various classifications.
Thank you. This is the Ohio Nurses Association, Local 85. There are approximately 4 employees in this union. They are in the health department and there's one in the safety medical unit. This union agreed to pattern wages and also the healthcare coverage. The pattern wages are 2, 2, and 2, and we're asking for approval.
Great. And there's a slight change to the pay band for public health nurse, increasing the maximum from 58,503 to 60,866.
Yes.
Questions, comments on ordinance 54220? If there are no questions, ordinance number 54220 will be considered by the full council this evening. By my count, by my observation, I think we went a little bit out of order, but I think we hit everything. Madam Clerk, is there any other ordinances that I missed?
No, everything's done.
All right, so everything has been heard. With that, this committee of the whole is adjourned. The council meeting will begin at 11 o'clock. And if you could please sign in at the second email, the second invitation beginning at 11. Thank you all very much.